This module puts the art in culinary arts, plate presentation. The objectives for this module include: describe the basic principles of plate presentation, design and plate food professionally, use a variety of techniques to add visual appeal to plated foods, and explain the concepts of a small plate menu and be able to compose small plates. Service is the process of delivering the selected foods to diners in the proper fashion. When thinking about service, there are a couple of rules you have to know. Rule number one, and the most important of rules, is this one. Hot foods must be served hot on heated plates. Cold foods must be served cold on chilled plates. If you know nothing else about cooking, you can get away with this rule. I call it two rules, but really it's rule number one: hot food hot, cold food cold. Presentation is the process of offering the selected foods to diners in a fashion that is visually pleasing. We've all heard it said before that diners consume first with their eyes. Food should be appropriately colored, cut, and molded into shapes that would not resemble anything anthropomorphic, but resemble something that is pleasing to the eye. The most attractive foods are those that are first and foremost properly prepared. Some techniques can be used to change the presentation of the foods, however, such as cutting the foods or molding the foods into different shapes. Aside from the food, we also have to consider what plates we're going to serve on. The size of the plate, we want to choose a plate that will accommodate the amount of food to be served. As you can see from the examples below, this is the same amount of food that's served on each plate. However, in each instance, with the plate being too large on the left-hand side and too small on the right-hand side, it makes the food look either too small or too large, respectively. We want to go with the one in the middle, the Goldilocks plate. Shape is also something to consider. Most are round or oval in shape, but there are many other shapes that are popular these days, and also many other materials that are popular. It's not just the ceramic or the china plate that you would see in most restaurants. Today, they're using everything from slate to wood to wire. While white and cream plates suit most foods, there is something to be said for having contrasting colors of plates as well, such as this Fiesta-style plateware. While not used near as much as it was in the past, patterns can be an effective accent to the food as well. You want to keep plates understated if you use patternware. While arranging foods on plate, think about several different topics. First thing is shape. Gives a more dramatic presentation, and you want to combine foods of different shapes on one plate. So for the example seen here, we've got rectangular cuts of meat. We've got rounded or circular cut of the pasta. We've got the foam that's put on there, and then just random sizes of the microgreens. Colors are also another aspect. Food of different colors should be presented together. This will give contrast to the different items and will showcase each one of them in turn. Textures are extremely important. Imagine a plate consisting of all mushy textures. Doesn't sound very appetizing to me unless you're 12 years old. Textures combine foods of different textures and different crunchinesses and different smoothnesses, richnesses to make food look more exciting. Using these various cooking techniques add texture to things, but also texture prevents the mouth from getting bored when you're eating. Additional considerations when arranging food on plates consists of composition. This is referring to where we put the food on the plate itself. Balance and overcrowding in white space. We want to have what we call negative space on the plate. This allows for us to have an area that is not utilized on the plate. Every square inch of the plate should not be utilized. You need to have a balance of the plate. Consider the number of elements on the plate too. Oftentimes we think about this as simple is better. Choose a focal point on the plate. The focal point of the plate could be at 12 o'clock if you're looking at it as a clock face, or it could be in the bowl, it could be right in the center, or it might be off to the side slightly. Design a plate with height in mind as well. The highest point of the food should always be higher than the rim of the plate. So the only exception to this is typically soup or something that is going to be served like soup, but even then we would use the garnishes to go above the rim of the plate. And then decide on the plate layout. Do this before you're going to design your food, before you're going to put your finalized plate out. If you're designing this for a menu, maybe you do an artist SketchUp, or you just do a simple pen and paper, or you might even just play with it a little bit, and once you find out what it looks like conceptually, you can take a picture of it and then replicate that every single time. Speaking of plate layouts, in a triangular placement of the featured item, the 3 shrimp is balanced in a swirl of fettuccine garnished in the center of the plate. The diagram on the lower right shows the triangular layout. Oftentimes this is also thought of as a clock face, where you may have the entree at 12 o'clock, the side items at maybe 5 and 7. This asymmetrical plating, which is on the lower left, features seared Arctic char paired with a curve of vegetables. Colorful smoked salmon, peas, and herb garnishes sit in the thick pea puree. The white space between the salmon and the sauce create a design element. The diagram on the lower right shows the asymmetrical layout. If you're plating the same foods, you want to plate the same foods that match the level of service and your menu pricing. This is an example of the same dish served 2 different ways. The traditional plating, which is on the lower left, features a simple presentation of pan-roasted airline chicken breast on a bed of pureed potatoes. An alternative presentation on the right of pan-roasted airline chicken breast employs an oversized oval plate and a flowing linear composition. Using fresh herbs and greens is one of the easiest way to add color, texture, and flow to a plate. But there is a word of caution here. There is a term in the culinary industry called non-functional garnish. It has to make sense with the dish. I don't want to just plop a sprig of rosemary on the plate if no one is going to eat the rosemary, because it is a non-functional garnish. Also, does it make sense with the item? If I'm doing this spaghetti carbonara and I'm garnishing with parsley, sure, I can see that. But if I were garnishing with chopped rosemary, which would completely overpower the dish, completely change the flavor of the dish, then that's something that you don't want to do. You want to think about the garnish and how it's going to interact with the main item. Cream sauces and light mousses can be foamed and applied as a garnish using a whipping siphon. This technique is illustrated in the photograph below of risotto garnished with shrimp and corn mousse. Sauces don't just apply moisture and flavor to a food, but they also can apply dimension and some sort of design on the plate. In this case, the baked fish fillets on the left are served with dots of lime vinaigrette. The seared diver scallops with tomato sauce, avocado relish, and tomato syrup is just kind of peeking out from the bottom. Sauce can also be painted on the plate. A word of caution about this: make sure that you use a fresh pastry brush. Do not use a painter's brush because it will shed hair. An example of painting with the sauce: this is using a brush to paint a balsamic reduction onto the plate with a pastry brush, or running a spatula through a line of fruit coulis creates a shadow effect. Small plates are a very popular eating style which give consumers variety. 3 or more plates may be ordered in place of a traditional appetizer or an entree. This sort of small plate dining is like a tasting menu. In Spain, it's referred to as tapas, or there's various other different ethnic styles that employ this style of eating. When using small plates, there are a few guidelines for creating small plates. Reduce portion size of the conventional entree. You can still use your main entrees, just serve it in a slightly different fashion. Reduce the number of units served. Use an unexpected garnish with a traditional protein. Don't use rosemary sprigs. Present entree items in a new format. Offer an assortment of starch dishes. One of my personal favorites is a croquette de jamón, which is a ham croquette from Spain. Highlight vegetables as a center of the plate item. And look for breakfast, lunch, and appetizer menus for inspiration. These are often already designed for small plates. Simplify the plating to compensate for the increased number of dishes needed. So let's summarize and discuss some of our takeaways today. Remember rule number 1, hot food, hot plates. Cold food, cold plates. When choosing a plate, the food dictates the plate and the plate dictates the plating. When arranging food on a plate, there are several rules you should follow. Then promptly ignore them. Generally speaking, most plates either follow the rule of 3 or the plated with odd numbers. Symmetrical plating tends to not be as pleasing to the eye. So when we plate, we tend to garner things in 3s or 5s or 7s as opposed to 2s or 4s. Typically, we only reserve 1s of anything for larger pieces of something. Height, focal point, garnish, texture, color. So many things to think about when plating. And finally, sauces can add more than just flavor and moisture. It can add dimension on a plate using dots, brush strokes, splatters, etc.